Kumlan about Gemara today, Erev Shabbos, Erev Yitzvat, we're up to Dafnun Beis. So basically, we had a Machlekes Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Akiva said that an Arusa, a Bas Kohen Arusa gets Skila, a Nasuya, married woman, she'll get Sreifa, but a single girl is not included. And Rabbi Shmuel says that no, Rabbi Shmuel, and the basis for that is he has a Gzer Shava Avia. Avia is extra, that she's Avia, he Mechalelas is extra to take Gzer Shava. We learned from a Naira Marasa, a girl who was engaged, who committed adultery, that she gets killed, and they were talking about a married woman. It's the same thing here as being married. Rabbi Shmuel disagrees. He says that a girl who's an Arusa, gets Sreifa, not Skila, but a girl who is married, she actually gets the same punishment as a Bas Yisrael, which is Chenek. He doesn't learn the Gzer Shava of Avia. I want to ask a question, Rabbi Shmuel, and according to Rabbi Shmuel, and how does Rabbi Akiva know to include also girls who are not a Naira? He says Ubas, the extra letter Vav, and then Rabbi Shmuel learned something else from the word Ubas. He learned that if a Kohen, if your father is a Baal Mum, is the daughter can treat like a Kohen, and we learn from Ubas that also that's included. Okay, so now according to Rabbi Shmuel, what does he do with the word Aviyah? Isn't that superfluous? We're up to the very top of the page. So this Bas, the daughter of a Kohen who committed adultery, it says that Aviyah he mechalal. So we're not talking about she's consorting with her father. So why does it say as Aviyah? And he's not using it for the Gzer Shava. So the Gemara asks, "Hi, is Aviyah mechalal? My daughter, what does he use it for?" So the Gemara may boil. Know what he uses it for? Like in a Tanya, like we learned here, that Meir Oimer, Ma Tam Leimer Aviyah mechalalos. What do we do with the word that she desecrated? She hurt. Impacted her father. If until now you respected him as a kohen, we no longer respect him as a kohen. As the Shulchan Aruch says that according to one opinion, if he gave the first aliyah, if he was always the first person, the Reish HaMedabin, the first speaker, all those kibbudim we take away. But all the avodas of a kohen he still has. He's not a cholol, and including bichas kohenim he still does. Just that. Everything, he's a regular kohen, but kibudim, he forfeited his kibudim for raising a child like that. Is noigim b'chel, covered noigim b'vizayin. In fact, not only you don't have to give him covered, you can actually denigrate him. I mean, we say others is a yolad, others is a gidul. It's cursed is a person, the father like that who raised such a daughter. Others sheyatzu chalotzav. Cursed is a person who created, who gave this, who sired his daughter. There is an argument if you can actually say that or just think it. Or the person deserves to be, but not to actually say it. What's the halacha? The halacha, there's another opinion that says no. That this din is only by a girl, a Bas Kohen, there were 18 witnesses and she was warned. Only then do we say Esavim Mechalelas and all of these ramifications and repercussions. But if she is stabbed, there was no hasra and 18 because we don't have a bezin all that today, then you're not allowed to even do that. So based on who do we so somebody behaves like a Russia and is a son of a Russia, we call him you Russia ben Russia. Or I feel it is she about Tzaddik. The father's a Tzaddik, but the son behaves like Russia, you're allowed to call him Tzaddik. You Russia ben Russia. This follows this Tana Meir who says that you can denigrate a person and call him out and say, you Russia ben Tzaddik, and every time that you talk about the Russia, you bring in his father. Zumis and the scholar Mishnah concludes, my Tana, what you're trying to say? The Tana is Zumis and the scholar Mishnah. We learned the Enigma Hadin. We learned the first Mishnah, the procedure, the protocols for Skila, Maitinos and Sakla, based on Skila. You take them in 2 stories high. We're about to go through every single one of these punishments. So it sort of wraps up. That was the Mitzvah and the scholar. Now let's move on to the next one. What's the next one? Next Mishnah. We're following the pattern of the Chachamim. We said everything's a specific order. Mitzvahs Hanisrafin. How did they burn somebody? They would sink him in the ground in fertilizer ad akavaisim until his knees. Now, why? Rashi says so he shouldn't move about back and forth. Others say others argue say why after fertilizer? They can put him into sand. Same thing. You can dig loose sand, and put him in there. He won't move around. So other Rishonim say the reason why they put him in the ground at the knees, to his knees, is so that if he defecates because he's so scared, nobody will notice. It won't because it all smells anyway. Exactly, manure. When I just saw the kosher the harakas, now we're doing the mitzvah sefer. They would take a very tough handkerchief, but the outside of it they use a soft handkerchief. So what's going to go around his neck will be the soft one. We don't want to be marks from the hard one, so the soft one goes around his neck. The koyach hatzavadi, you wrap it around his neck. You have two people, each one drags it to his own. We're not trying to strangle him. We're just forcing him to open his mouth. Ad shepazechet he opens his mouth. Madlik sapsil, we light the psil of leather, which we'll see in a minute. The zerket of piv, they toss it into his mouth. The yoredet of it goes down to his intestines. The chaymeres of bnei and it burns right through his intestines. Very descriptive, but you have to know what to do. Abudaimer af hu im mace biyodim loimakai. It's a problem. Sometimes they kill him from strangling itself, and it's supposed to be the misa of sreifa, not chenek. So he says, use tongues to open his mouth wide. Obviously, he's not very happy about it. Then you toss in that wick, it goes into his intestine, and it burns through his intestines. No, he's only describing the actual form of death. And we'll explain. So there's a story once with the daughter of a kohen, she was mezana. They put a whole bunch of wood all around the food. No, they took Torah literally. The Torah says get straight, but they burnt her. The Rabban answered they didn't know what they were doing. They were bezin of tzdukim, so they did the wrong thing. And I guess Rabbi Elazar Tzaddik thought that it was like a Hayirah Shah, they decided that to go ahead and pass the bezin's sack, but there's no bezin, but they did it anyway because it was a hef keris. My psila, what do you mean a wick? Automasa psila shalei was a wick made out of lead because it melts down, becomes liquidy, and liquid they pour down his throat. Minolan, how do you know? How do you know that you didn't burn the person? Maybe Taki you burnt the baskar. How do you know that you poured hot molten lead down their mouth? So we have a different opinion, two opinions. We learn out, it says here, Be'esh Tesaref, and by Hadasa Kairach, it says that they brought up, the frying pan, they brought up the Hasrukim. Is Malahal and Sereif and Neshama Guvkaim, those people who joined Hadas Kairach, their bodies were intact. Their Neshamas died, we'll soon see how we know that. I can't say for Neshama Guvkaim, same over here. That it's only internal. But Abelazar Asya's he learns Sereif and Bnei Adam. What have I not of you? That their body is intact, as we'll soon see how we know that. I can't say but here also the body is still intact, it's just molten lead that they swallow. Mandi Yalef Madas Kaidach Minole. How do you know they didn't perish, they weren't burnt? How do you know that that's only in the Shama? It says in Pasik, that the frying pans of these sinners been nafshesam with sounds like that's the punishment in their soul. That let them neshama die, snuff out of them, but they will remain alive. And the one who does not learn from Nasakaydach, Rabbi Lazar, who learns from Bnei Adam, why did you learn from there? He holds Sefer Mamashi. They were burnt alive. So what do you mean that the nefesh? You know why they were chai sreifa? Because they had certain pleasures which brought them closer to kairach. As we know, he invited them to a meal, and therefore they were punished because they allowed themselves to become persuaded by kairach. As it says the pasuk, it says the pasuk by through chanufim and through trying to ingratiate themselves. My teeth were gnashing at them. Because of this chanufa, we're trying to exactly, and because of a meal, is Sashagenim got to them. So that's what nafshaisim is. What brought them closer to Keirach is because they were eating together, and because of that, it says ben nafshay they sin through a nefesh.
So they give them first the question, yain, to make them so that they'll be more relaxed.
The machlek is actually, if it applies to all dal misses or just a skiller. That is true. Okay, true. Well, Monday Am Adam and all they had is about Bnei Adam Avihu. They didn't. They said the possible they're burnt. How do you know they weren't? You see, it said by Yamusu lived Hashem. They died. But Yamusu normally is a natural death. Ke'ein misa. The other one who saved from Mamish Havit. The other one says no, the Mamish got burned. That's why I don't live from Nadav Avihu. It started. What do you mean started from the inside? Two lines of fire went from Beis Kodesh. The Nechel Kula Arba was divided into four. Two entered this guy's noses, two entered this guy's, another of Navios was suffered and burnt them. So it started from the inside, but they were burnt entirely. Eyes in the public see about some they were burned as if they but nothing, something else wasn't. And we learned from there that the neshama got burnt, snuffed out of them, but not their goof. Oysam, so he answers, Oysam b'loy big dam. Oysam comes day, but the clothes were intact. Mishal Vatzafin came in, according to him, that's why he didn't live from another review. The nail of the mother, why don't we live from Pariman is Serafi over there? Burnt means it literally got burnt. Talk about a baskoi. You have Sefer. There's other places where it says Sefer. Like the Pariman is Serafi, you set it in the base of meat, then you put it outside and you burnt it outside. Learn from there. There, they take a burnt entire animal, turned to the ashes. So the Gemara, you know why? Maybe it makes more sense to learn for a few reasons. More makes more sense to learn either from another Vaviyu or to learn from Das Kedach. Why? She came first of all, Adam. They're all people. We're talking about people there. Number two is Chayte. They're all sinners. Das Kedach. And other Vaviyu, you know, they did Hashem. They did something wrong. And this Baskoyan did something wrong. They're all similar. And in the Shama, they all died right then and there. Das Kedach died as a result of the fire. The Navir died as a result of the fire. The Bas Kaim will die as a result of the fire. Mashing they put him on the stuff, and they were shechted already inside the base of English. When they were taken outside to be burnt, there was no Natilis Neshama taking place there. And the last thing is Pigel. There's no Pigel by people, only by the Parliament Safim. So there's four things that they have in common. Why? Shekain, there's two things they have in common. Machshir, both of them were done because the Bezin told to do it. By Das Kedach, it came from Hashem. By another view, it came from Hashem. Mashengi by Bas Kohen, this is a din, this is what you have to do. By Pariman Nisrafin, this is a din, what you have to do. So they're very similar. They're both Machshir. Number one. Number two, Ladaitis. This is how you always do Pariman Nisrafin. This is how you always do Bas Kohen. Mashengi, the story of the view was a one-off event. The story of Das Kohen is a one-off event. Nevertheless, Hanach Nefishim. Here it's four, and here it's two. Monday, no, two things. Machshir Kama. One thing is that both of them were instructions. Part of myself, these are instructions how to do it. No, Machshir, yeah, but Machshir means it's preparation for Kapara. Actually, some of the Shem ask, why doesn't it say Kapara here? But it's Machshir. Okay. Hanach Nefishin. These here's four, here's two. Monday, okay, the one is not good. Why doesn't they add another view? We said before, you're right, we're leading to the next question. So we answer who's saving Mamash. He believes that none of the year with Mamash burns. So the obvious question is, so you have two choices now. To compare to Das HaKedach, which is what only the Neshama was snuffed out, but their goof was this, or to learn from another view that they burnt entirely. How do you know which one to go? For the Gemara, let us learn from another view. And Bas Kohen should be burnt. The famous Amnachim we had read twice before. Here's the third time. It's much better just to have internal death than to be burned completely. As much more painful, takes longer. So now we have Nachman shovel. Why do you need a shovel? We said Sreifa, we had a shovel. Just say, choose the best death. That is burning. The best death. Obviously, the most seamless, the quickest is internal. No, so you have the shava. I would have thought Sreifa means Pashat Sreifa, Shama the Goof. I would have thought that Nachmet, Sreifa, the Shama, Sreifa is Neshama, and Gukayim Lav Sreifa Klal. I would have thought that's not called Sreifa. The goof is still intact. That's what I thought. What about Hatarecha Kameichet? Isn't that compelling to say they should do internal? No, I would have thought, you know what Hatarecha means? Put a bunch of, like the man in put as much wood as possible so it'll burn very quickly, a roaring fire. It'll happen very quickly, but it has to be a fire. Interesting word here to use for in a hurry. We heard that they should burn. Sorry? Exactly. Yeah, it's an interesting word. Usually you use Beheda or whatever. Kamashalon, that no. We learn from either Das Kedach, whatever it's the Shama. Then you say, Moshe, Adam going away, but not of the were following them. The Choy Yisrael, the Moshe tells a story Omelay Nodav Lavi or Nodavio. Amos Musu Shnes Kadim Allah. Just think of the one of these two old people going to pass on. Remember, Moshe and Aaron was 3 years older than Moshe, and Moshe was in his 80s. And Aaron was older. Will become the new leaders. Why did they think that they'll become? It makes sense they should take over Aaron because they were Kohanim and they were son. But so from here, one of the rayas they bring, Gimel and Hey, talks about by Rabbanus is not Yerusha. The opinion says that Rabbanus is not Shulchan brought down. That Rabbanus is not Yerusha. Whoever is the most fitting person becomes the Rav. One of the rayas they bring is from right here. That Nadav Avihu said, "We'll take over Moshe." How can you do that when you have Gersh? I'm like, I need to be good. Let's see who'll bury who. I'm gonna Papa. The Papa said, "Hi, people saying the fishy gamli savi that there's so many old camels, unfortunately, that they carry the hide of the young ones. In other words, unfortunately, many times children predecease their parents. There's a beautiful medrash where it says that Eve, when he saw what happened, not a veal, he says, "Oh, I'm in trouble," and they try to serve it means. I once heard the pshat that the pshat is Eve. There were 3 people at that meeting, right? Yisrael said, "Save the Eden." Bilam said, "Kill the Eden," and Eve was quiet. And he thought he abstained. You know, the UN has a vote against Israel. He abstained. But when he saw what happened to Nadav Avihu, Avihu didn't do anything. Nadav did all the speaking, and they both got killed because of this. Is a raya that if you're silent when you should protest, passive is just as bad as the protester. And he got scared. He realized that he made a mistake for being white. Omar Allah said, we just spoke about Kodesh, how these people in Great Kodesh, they fell down because of him. Why does a Talmud Chacham compared before? I'm not looking at Talmud Chacham and a rabbi. What's the first thing? First, but they don't talk to him. They have such respect and awe and reverence for the rabbi. He's like a jug of gold. See, but when they start having conversations, they realize the rabbi has opinions like no different than anybody else. But he's fought the rabbi, so they treat him a little bit less respect, but still like a kitten of silver. Once the rabbi goes and eats in this person's house and the familiarity is there, like a kitten of earth. Now, what is it? Once he loses respect for the rabbi, he can't get it back. And that's the chiluk between a rebbe and a rav. A rav, it says in Malach Hashem. You've already said in Malach Hashem, in Malach Hashem, Malach Hashem, then you should be kabel taken. So the Pinchas Baal Flo asked the Shemagid, who knows what a Malach Hashem is? He says, Im Rav Shachov, Malach Hashem, then you back to turn appeal. Who knows what a Malach Hashem is? That we should then say, oh, he's like a Malach. We're going to go learn from him. What does that even mean? So in the Shemagid says exactly pshat. Just like you don't know what a Malach is, if this person here, this Rebbe, the closer you are to him, the more distant he is, and you realize how he's such a higher madrega than you are, then Mevakar turn appear, just like a Malach. But if it's like the Gemara right here, as you become more familiar with the Rebbe and everything else, you realize he's just as human as you are, and he has failings and so on, just like you do, then it's not like a Malach Hashem's focus. So anyway, right, Imrata Bastli Baskoyen is the name of a person. Imrata Bastli, she was a Baskoyen, interesting name. Shazinsa, she was Mazana. Akav Rab Chama Bartuvia Chavila's mother is a suffer. Chama Bartuvia went and put a whole bunch of wood around her and burnt her. Our Rabbi Tobatat made 2 mistakes. First of all, Tobat Master. First, we made a mistake. Master said they did an internal, it was a wick of lead, not they put wood all around them and so on. Number 1. And 2, the second thing is, what's he judging now? There's no business. But time we learned, when the base of Midrash is in service, then Yesh Mishpah, then you go ahead and you put out capital punishment. But ain't Koyin, ain't Mishpah, where there's no Koyin, no base of Midrash. There's no Sanhedrin. But Abchama was thinking that it's a Hirosh, and they had to do whatever it is he did. I'll tell you, I'll tell the story about a Bas Koyin from Razana. And he remembered they burnt her literally, and the Chacham told him he was a bezin who were not a baki, they were tzedukim. Already said bezin tzedukim. What do you mean? They were not baki, they were tzedukim. They didn't believe in what the Chacham said. Because it says burning, so they took it literally burning. So the Gemara says, "How did that? What happened? They had this conversation. But time we learned, I remember Tin was a kid. I was sitting on my father's shoulder. The Bas Kohen is into the brought up girl Bas Kohen, who's Mazana. The Kivu had his mother. I remember clearly that they did that, and it was in front of the Bezin. Yeah, forget well. We had a second prayer as well, a number of things. I remember my father took me to Beis Agronis, and that's how we knew he was a Kohen. Like cotton hayisa. They said to you're telling us this now about an event that happened when you were a child. What did you know? We can't trust you. Interesting. He was saying maybe a cotton over there by the case of the because you remember they brought in basic grounds. Anyway, two separate stories. So when I asked, okay, which story happened first? Elam Hakamaisa, this one here, they told it that the one in our Mishnah was first. He told the Edis that he saw when he was a godel, and they told him it can't be. He must have been the Bezin Shultuki. Was he told the story what happened that he remembers clearly and he was a valid aid, and they ignored him. What do you think? They'll tell him after the story that he remembers a kid, and they're going to believe him then? Yeah. First, he told him the story about when he was a kid. And Ramalei Kotni said, "Tell me you're a child." Then Ramalei God told him what happened when he's an adult. Ramalei said, "That's what they told him they were looking." Next one is Mitzvah Hanagrogid. Next one is Saif. What did they do, Saif? They decapitated him. Just like they do in kingdoms. The very important Gemara here about Chukasayim from this one right here. That's degrading. Almost like a guillotine. They place his head on a piece of wood, a block. The kaifetz, big kaifetz. They use like an axe and they chop it off. That's even worse, like an animal. This is what we're to comprehend. Tanya, we learned. Remember the Marmakas. If it happened once in 7 years or 70 years, it was rare. Tanya learned. Remember, the only way you can become chayiv is if you say, "I know I'll get killed and I don't care." Which idiot would do that? How often that happens? Time to learn. I know what this is a Mishra Milavelis. It says, Rabbi Yehuda says, can't do it your way decapitating, because that's what the Goyim do. But once the Torah says it, we're not doing it because the Goyim told us, the Torah told us. Now, let me just say, there's a famous Marik, which is actually not but many argue, but the Ramon Beshas are both passing of the Marik. The Marik says, when are you either the Chukasayim L'Salechu? If you look at the media will collect a whole bunch of dinim over here about the Chukasayim L'Salechu. He said Chukasayim L'Salechu is only if they do it derech pritzes, like they used to wear red, and red was to attract attention. We had the more brachas there at Putesa, and or in China it would be yellow, the same thing, because yellow there is their color for attractive pritzes, or they do V'Shem Avodah Zarah. Or if they do something which makes absolutely no sense, there's no benefit from it, so then you have to suspect there's some kind of Avodah Zarah going back in the beginning. Maybe they don't remember right now, but that's where it all started from. But if they're doing it makes sense. It gives an example. Doctors wear a white uniform to know that this person is a doctor in the hospital. Nothing wrong with that. Where it makes sense. Nothing wrong with even follow it. That's the Marik's word. And the Vilnagon and others ask from this Gemara here, it sounds here the only reason l'chayda decapitating you have to punish. That's what the Goyim did that because they punished this murderer. Torah says you have to punish. So what's the chukah saying here if you decapitate? And it seems to the Gemara the only reason why we're going to do it is because of the pasuk in the Torah. But wouldn't it have been for the pasuk in the Torah? We're not doing it because the Goyim were doing it because of Torah. And if not for that, we wouldn't be able to do that, even though there's no Avodah Zarah here, there's no anything else. And the Taisa says clearly, there's no Avodah Zarah over here. But maybe the Marik would learn that maybe the reason why they're decapitated is like a human sacrifice. It's very similar to an animal. Maybe there's a shemitz of Avodah Zarah, and that's why we needed a pasuk. Maybe that's how we'll respond. Anyway, I can say that all the time. We learned sorry for Namalach. By us, the meaning was that when a king dies, take all of his assets and you burn it with him. Out covered. How can you burn it? How can we follow the Goyim do that? Now over here, the reason why they do it is because it's a covered, that none of the assets of the king should be used by anybody else. And again, why do you need a pasuk? Why do you need a pasuk for? Because the Marik, where it makes sense. It's not because you're not doing it because of pritzes, you're not doing it because stam in the Weltanayim, because maybe you're doing it because it makes sense. Covered for the king. Why do you need to say because of a pasuk? Very interesting. The Raya the Marik bring, one of the Rayas. The Gemara tells a story that there was a store that opened up and it was selling meat, bread, meat, whatever, a restaurant, and it was scared of the Goyim. So he would watch if a person went to wash the hands before the bread quietly, he knew the guy was a yid. He would only give him kosher. If he didn't see the guy wash his hands, the guy's a guy. He would give him treif. And so the Marik says, can't you tell him to dress? A yid dress different than a guy because is it I when it comes to clothes, you couldn't tell who's a yid and who's a guy. If not, if you wear a cap, there's no way of telling if it's a yid or a guy. Is that ayah that there's nothing wrong with dressing like a guy when it's warm, it covers your body and it's nice. That's not mechukah saying. That's his ayah. The Shach says he doesn't understand this whole ayah. It's talking about the Gzeres Hashma, as the Gemara Chulin says. The Gzeres Hashma is the phrase in Shulchan Aruch that you're allowed to. You're not allowed to say you're a guy to save yourself, but you're allowed to dress like a guy. And if they think you're a guy, you don't have to argue with them. Let them think you're a guy. There's a sefer called Yagid Moshe. The author of Yagid Moshe died in the Holocaust. So and his brother took over and he continued. So in the Hagdama he writes that his brother had blonde hair and blue eyes, and they were in Germany. And the Nazis, the Nazis came over to him. He said, "Are you a Yid?" And his brother must have told him, and he screamed out. Well, he was watching it, and he said, "You, yes," knowing what's going to happen to him. And he said, "Shulchan says you're not allowed to say you're a goy." They wouldn't have asked me. I could just walk around with a blonde hair, blue eyes. He said he could have passed as a guy easily. He looked German, but he said, "I'm not. I'm a Yid, whatever it is." He was 16, 17 years old, and then he was killed like he was Hashem. Yeah. Since it's a sign of the lab and Nike Gabriel. But you want to be the pig, we learn another pedic, alien and the rogin or the tzeich when you're dachas. It says another pedic, the following people get saif as a punishment. Who gets saif? A murderer and an ajin and dachas. Bishlam dachas, it says it says there's a page of passing a sword. Elder the tzeich, murder him in Nolan. How do we know the Tanya? So we answer, how you know it says knock'em, you knock it says the pasuk, knock'em, you knock you should take into talking about if you hit your Eved and you killed him, is not coming, you got to take revenge. Any day, what? No. An Eved, your Eved, you killed your Eved. The pasuk says, knock him, you get killed. You the Balbas. No, but the Torah, the Abish will take revenge. Yeah, the Benchland. But now it doesn't say what the punishment is. It just says knock him. When it says the pasuk about Veisem Aleichem Cherev Nekemis, we find the word when it comes to the comment that Abish says I'll use a sword. Is knock him, but it's using a sword. Okay, so by David, and we'll soon make a kabbalah. If an David, then surely by a Balbos also to say. Remember that we hold that Saif is stricter than Chedek. The Borzlei Mivrus. How do you know it means to decapitate? Maybe it means you take the sword and you plunge it in his heart. It says the length side of the cherev, the mouth of the cherev, the two sides of the cherev. Uses the cherev sideways, not to point the edge. The aim of the maybe you slice the person in half. You take from the top of the head and you work vertically down. That's not very nice. So when Ashkan, okay, the Kotalav, if you want to know what it's saying, so we found by an Eved, we learn out from Nakum that what it means with a Saif. But how you know every other murder? After Bachorim and all, that's an Eved. How you know Bachorim also the same punishment? Kotalav the Besayif. If he killed your Eved, you're going to get a harsher punishment of Cherev. Bachorim Bechenik. How can the Bachorim, if you kill Bachorim, you get only Chenik? So okay, that's a good Raya Lamadama Chenikal. According to Chachamim, said that Chenik is strict and no Michael Member. He says you're right. Menafkli, we learned out from Meditanya. We learned by Elaruf of Ata Tavai Damanoki Mikirbe. You have to get rid of all this innocent blood and do the right thing. That's by the Eglarufa. That's why we go through the whole thing. It says all murderers are compared to Eglarufa. Malahalam Besai, if you use there a knife, Uminat Savar from the neck. Not stabbed in the heart. Afkan b'sayif umin savar. So the Gemara, but there's not a sword. There's an axe. Imalahalan the koifetz. First of all, use an axe by an eglufa, and no, and not one too. A mulayif for the back. Is Avkam a mulayif? Same thing here. For the fifth time already. Okay, now what's chenek? Again, they put him in the ground. With those knees. Nice as because the take these two handkerchiefs, the tough one and the tender one, because they wrap it on his neck. Here they just pull and pull and pull until his stomach goes out. So then, are they breaking his neck or they're strangling him that he can't breathe anymore? And we'll see. Ish prat lekol. It says in pasuk that a person that commits adultery. The pasuk says ish, and we're going to medayik every word. Ish, a man that commits adultery with an ish, a married woman, and he lusts after ishes the wife of your friend, and then it says mois yumas hanoyev anefes. Now we'll soon see how we know it's chelik. Ish prat lekol. If this is a cotton, he obviously doesn't get punished. Asher that he desires an H practically H is cotton. The wife of a cotton, there's no kiddushin, so she's not a married woman. Now, there's a famous shit of Ribar Zilai. The Ribar Zilai holds, he holds that if the child got married via his father or somebody else, we have a concept called Das Acheres Makna. Someone else can be Zoich on your behalf. So the child, according to him, is Mekudish Ma'atoida. A Heichit Timtza you can have under Bar Mitzvah, Mekudish Ma'atoida, if someone else did the Kedushin, an adult, did the Kedushin on their behalf.
Yes, because of like a threat, they would say that you would take Kedushin from the daughter.
Another daughter.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about a son. Oh, I'm talking about a son. No, I'm talking about a son here. That's his Chiddush. He said that even though Gemara says clearly here, Prat Leish is cotton, but if this cotton was Mekudish through a third party, is Mekudish Mahatoida. Then there's another opinion of Ben Chananel, wrote down the Russian Gittin. Ben Chananel says that if the cotton is mature enough, understands what marriage is, then even though it's under Bar Mitzvah, Mekudish is Mekudish. And so they asked Raya in this Gemara here. So obviously he was talking about there was no third party that got them married. And then there's a Taisus and everything else that said that you should marry, according to Rashi and Taisus, you should marry your children off, not after Post Mitzvah, but Samach Lepirkan, Marivamas, that means prior to Bar Mitzvah. And the vart is, even though according to Taisus and Rashi, they hold, you're not married, like Rashi says clearly, you're not, there's no Kedushin, but it's not Znus either. So they can live together. It's not Znus because you came in through marriage. They're not married technically, you don't need a get. When you come by mitzvah, but this way you make sure there's a mitzvah. According to Rashi, there's a mitzvah to marry them Samach Lepirkan, so they're ready to continue. That's right. Talis he's engaged. I think he's married. Yeah, so okay. True, that's the word. But was he married or was he engaged? Maybe, okay. H is an AU, Pratla H is Achedim. What do you mean H is Achedim? So Rashi says, Pratla H is Achedim, Kusi. If he was married to a Kusi, it doesn't apply. Very strange. But Rashi says a Kusi, because there's no Kedushin to Kusi. Very strange. 2 days ago we had Rashi that a Goy is like this Chattenbaum and it is Kedushin. A Kusi, these are the people that initially we thought they were Yidden and then later on we decided to have it in like a Goy, but there's a whole question mark whether the Kedushin is Chal. Rashi says no Kedushin. It's as if the word Kusi belongs in the previous Rashi, that you even like this Chattenbaum, and the word Goy there belongs in this Rashi. In fact, he brings it in the bottom that it should say Goy. Because the Kusi is questionable if there's Kedushin there, maybe not. The east of like this Chattenbaum here in Marivam is a Machlekes Rishonim there. If like this Chattenbaum is Shaykh B'chal by Yidna Goy, or Dafka the 7 nations, or all nations, and Dafka the 7 nations who became a Yid. And talking about the 7 nations, there's some Rishonim hold that the Isser of the Chukasem Selechu only applies to the passages written by the Zayin Umas. When you go to Yisrael, don't follow them. It only is limited to the Zayin Umas. The Rabbanon we amplify it and extend to everybody else. Okay, I'm going to write. And what's the part of Mechanik? Maybe something one of the other ones. Whenever it says Taylor Stam, you always have to, since we don't know which one it is, you got to give the most lenient one. And we'll see, how do we know? We know there are 4 misses because that's Moshe Messinai. We don't know which one to give. Give the most lenient. Chenek. It says, in fact, because the Gemara says later, he holds like a Shimon, that Chenek is not the most lenient. I don't give Chenek. It's Chenek. But how do we know? It says sometimes Hashem Moshe Yumas that you should kill him, sometimes it says that you should die. The Abba should give chorus, so there's no lasting signs in the body. The only Misa that has no Reishim at all is strangulation. Because the person hasn't changed, he can't breathe anymore. And Sreifa has a little bit of a relation because on the inside is burned, I guess. It's a little bit of a relation. Aim a Sreifa, but you're right. Sreifa doesn't really have the ratio is tiny, minute, if anything. The aim a Sreifa, maybe the Sreifa then. We answer, but why if every miss a Sreifa, then why tell me a bas kohen a Sreifa? Because I love bas Sreifa. This is different. Please let me be in the same kid come every time, but I'll be explain. If the Tatus is the most human, and we don't know chenik, all we know is 3 misses. So how does he know chenik? He said the most lenient one. Who told you Bechal it's a method? Maybe it's Saif. Amarava Arba Mrs. Gemari Milu. That is halacha mejina for Mrs. Because we have to work out who gets what. So my loif nejekala. What do you mean? I'm not nothing goes back and says no, not because of Rabbi says not because it's most lenient. Because Plukta the Rab Shimon Rabban. Rabbi holds like Rab Shimon that chenik is not most lenient.